On Wednesday, April 17th, 2024, Jenkins LTS version 2.440.3 was released. In this live stream, we're going to be talking about all the changes in that release. If you're new here, by the way, if you don't know who I am, my name is Darren Pope. I'm a developer advocate with CloudBees. And on today's show, I also have on with me Mark Waite. Mark, how are you doing today?
Great, Darren. Thanks for asking.
So here we are at the end of a cycle. We're at a .3.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going well. We're getting ready to go into the next unknown charted territories, which we'll talk about at the end of the video.
Yeah.
But for people that aren't aware of what a Jenkins LTS is, can you walk us through that real quick?
Sure. Jenkins releases every week, consistently, like a clock. But we choose a long-term support release every 12 weeks. We start by choosing a baseline. That baseline release, we then give it a few weeks to watch how it's received, etc., and then release that baseline release plus whatever changes were needed to make it a stable release as a .1. So 2.440 released, and then a few weeks later, we released .1. 4 weeks after that, we released 2.440.2 with incremental changes to .1 based on what we learned from experience with .1 in the field. Then 4 weeks after that, 2.440.3 was released, again with some incremental changes. We use this long-term support process so that people who don't want to upgrade every week still have a nice consistent Jenkins version they can update every 4 weeks.
Or every 6 weeks, depending on what time of year it is.
Right. Okay, Darren makes a valid point that over the Christmas break, over the end of year break, both Christmas and New Year's, the Jenkins project for many years has taken a 2-week quiet time, and thus it was a 6-week period. Yes, so once a year we release on a 6-week clock, not a 4-week clock.
It's going to be interesting what happens when we actually have it on the 15th. And it's like, okay, what do we do now?
Yeah, that's I haven't looked that far forward to see when is the next calendar complication. We'll deal with it.
Complication. That's a polite way to put it. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we have for this release. Again, it came out on Wednesday. And if you haven't taken a look at the release notes before, under the hamburger in my case, because of just how I have things sized, I'm going to go to download and then changelog. That's the changelog we want to take a look at. Now, also there's an upgrade guide. We'll visit the upgrade guide again in just a minute.
Right.
But the changelog for the stable release, 2.440.3, hey, 17 happy, no sads. It's a good start for 2 days. By the way, if you're watching this later, we're recording this about 48 hours after the actual release, give or take probably a few hours. Mm-hmm. But in this one, there was a security release, right? That's and it was big, but not big, I guess. How do you want to classify it?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one to discuss because it's not nearly as dramatic as some of the other things that have happened, but it's good that people are aware of it. Notice the severity on that, medium. All right, medium in the world of security is much better than high or critical.
That's an understatement, yes. So with this, the Mina library that shipped inside of the CLI was considered to be vulnerable, right? So now it got patched to the later version of Mina and life continues on.
Yeah, well, and this particular, the Terrapin SSH vulnerability is I'd call it kind of obscure in the sense that you had to be very sophisticated to think through this one, and it, as described here, reduces the security of an SSH connection. So there were a lot of conversations in the open SSH community that, hey, this is not desirable, but is it a real serious threat? Not so much.
Right.
So,
and this is the key part too. The only time this would have happened, and this is in the info section here,
right.
only when you're using the SSH connection mode. So if you're not using the SSH connection mode, which isn't the default,
right?
Just don't use SSH mode unless you have no choice.
And this is a good place for us to thank the Apache Mina maintainers that they did a library upgrade. And a reminder to the rest of us who are library consumers that it's really good to be sure that we're upgrading regularly to libraries that we're consuming. This was one where Daniel Beck actually discovered we had missed doing this library upgrade during normal flow of work, and that hinted at another problem. So it's good that this was detected, and now we know to watch for that condition to be sure it doesn't happen again.
Yep. Let's go back over to the log. Again, with this being a .3, we don't expect a lot here. There's practically no new features. There's, just like fix the bugs, fix little things. So if we were to take a look, actually, I'm going to do if you take a look at the legend at the top, there's enhancements and bug fixes. So purple and red. So primarily purples. Okay.
Right.
But if you really look at it, here's the Mina one that we just saw from the security release. A tri-lead bundle. Okay, that sort of makes sense because, again, bundled in with the war distribution or however you're getting your distribution, whether it's a container image or otherwise. Upgrading Spring Security makes sense. Upgrading bundle plugins. So this plugin and tri-lead, this is sort of the same family. Okay. Just the housekeeping is what I consider those last four.
Exactly. Keeping things healthy. We hope most users already choose to upgrade their plugins when they upgrade their Jenkins core. In the case of these bundled plugins, it's important for a user who's doing a first-time install, we give them the newer version. We like that.
Right, because if that wouldn't have happened here, let's assume, ignore the Mina one for just a minute. So those two bundled ones, if .3 would have been released without the updated bundled ones, then what would have happened is you did your install, and immediately, if you were to go to available plugins for upgrade, whatever the phrasing is, you would have seen these plugins listed there.
Exactly.
So, okay. So let's take a look at the two bugs. Ensure threads in the thread pool for remoting always use the right class loader. I'm restating it just a little bit. And this is my favorite here. To prevent random class loading issues. Welcome to Java 101.
Well, welcome to Jenkins is a large-scale Java application, and class loading matters very, very much.
Yep, and it's running in an executor service, which if you haven't had the joys of working in an executor service before, you want to make sure you get class loading right.
Right.
Otherwise, chaos ensues, to put it simply.
Right. And now the actual occurrence of this bug was relatively rare, and the existence of the bug has been there for quite a while. So the rare, but hey, we want it fixed. This is not a thing that let's just leave it alone.
I agree. And then the final one, customization of agent log files did not work for inbound agents.
Right. Just straight out of the bug. Right. We like to be able to write the logs where we want them, and users running an outbound agent, so an agent initiated from the controller towards the agent, could customize where those logs were written. But in this case, if you were waiting for the connection to come from outside towards Jenkins, no, you couldn't.
That's where you just have to shake your head, and that's fine. That's the whole log. Actually, just to be, finish it all out. We were talking about the upgrade guides. In case this is your first time here, you should always look at the upgrade guide.
Right.
And what you hope to see when you take a look at the upgrade guide, you'll see the version that you're working on. You go to the version that you're working on, and this is what you want to see. No notable changes requiring upgrade notes.
Yeah, I'm fine if you see something else. You absolutely want to read it. And yes, when you're reading it, it does no harm for it to say no notable changes. That's good.
Yeah. That means you just don't have to do anything.
Right.
But if you were to look at the other two that we had with .2 and .1, there was, depending on, am I using configuration as code? Yeah, I got something to do. Do I want to make sure I got my right remoting because things change there?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I think that's it, Mark.
I do too.
I really do. Now, you just got back.
I did.
As we're doing this live, you were at
Open
Source Summit
and CDCon.
CDCon, and the other 987 cons that happened at the same time, I think.
And I tell you, that was a really great experience, Darren, because I got to drop in on talks from people that were sort of unrelated but fascinating, and had several good conversations with people about things that I think will ultimately help the Jenkins project.
Do you want to go ahead and talk about some of those?
Well, okay, so one of the things that we learned was, or that I learned was, dependency management is not just a Jenkins thing, and it's not just a Java thing. And our active use of Dependabot and Renovate are making a real difference to reduce the threats that are happening to users. So we love that Jenkins maintainers care about those kind of things and that they keep them up to date. Another was that I had a conversation with a company that does measurements of the health of open source projects. And I had attended a session on Monday of how do you assess the health of an open source project? What are some of the metrics you use? And there's an entire community around assessing the health of open source projects. It's open source looking at the data. I was fascinated, and we'll certainly use some of the ideas. We've been using some of those ideas for years in the Jenkins project already, but they had some new things that we'll take advantage of and continue using them.
I see new Jira issues
Well,
and potentially GitHub issues showing up very soon.
New data extractions, new things to ask, new questions to ask, and we'll use the results from those questions to help have a better community.
So the next release is going to be May 15th.
Correct.
So we should be here, cross our fingers, May 16th, 4:30 Eastern.
Correct.
Has the new version been picked yet?
It has. The new baseline is 2.452, and we'll have some fun things to discuss then. I've already started testing it in my environment, and I'm quite pleased with it. So I started testing 2.452 weekly, and I'll stay on weekly until we get a release candidate of 2.452.1. But it feels smooth. There are some changes. There are some things that will be worth discussing in the changelog, and we'd love to have help from others who might want to test with us.
So if you're wanting to start Get Ready, let me state it real clearly. Not in production at the moment, but go pick up 452, because that's going to be the new baseline.
Right. Yeah. So it's, I think we like people to use weekly as well. Right now we're on 2.454 for weekly, and people are welcome to use weekly. But if you'd like to help with the LTS test process, you could join me in testing 2.452. And I'm going to spend some additional time on it. That means you'd have to wait to upgrade your weekly. You wait another week, another 2 weeks. That's okay.
When should the first RC be available?
I think we're about 2 weeks away from release candidate. So release candidate will be available 2 weeks prior to the first release to the original release. So May 15 minus 2 weeks should give us May 1,
1st.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Anything else, Mark?
Nothing else from me.
So you're
Thanks,
caught
Darren.
up. You're back from your trip, and now you're settled.
Recovered and ready to go.
Okay. Well, sounds good. So thanks to everybody that was here with us live. If you're watching the replay, be sure to join us again on May 16th, 4:30 Eastern. That's the plan. Things can change, and that's fine. You know, this life goes on. But 452 will be pretty interesting, because I've already looked at a few of the things, and it's like, I wonder how this is going to play out.
Right.
All right. So thanks, everybody. Have a great, by the way, since we're here on Friday, have a great weekend, everybody. It should be a fun weekend unless you're stuck in the snow. And for some people, that's fun even so. But for somebody from the South, not so much. Thanks, and we'll talk to you again in about 4 weeks.